If your tires are so old, they literally remember the Alamo, that's a big O no. Thankfully, for all your car's big O no's, there's always a big O yes. Now through December 31st at participating Big O tires, save $70 instantly on sets of 4 Continental, Cooper, Goodyear, or Yokohama brand tires with paid installation purchase. Not valid with other offers. Disposal fees extra and up to 10% shop fee based on non-discounted regular retail price not to exceed $35 where permitted. See store for details.
Welcome to Red Zone Extra on Facebook Live. Hey, I hope everybody had a great Christmas. We're coming at you from Big O Tires in Lee Summit, 1125 Southwest Oldham Parkway. It is a home game for Sam McDowell.
Yes, it is.
How about that?
Yeah, finally.
Finally get a home game. Because last time we were here...
It's your first time on away turf in a long time, right?
It really is.
But you couldn't be here for the last one of these.
I couldn't. I was on assignment the last time we were here in Lee Summit.
That's right. So we have Sam McDowell, Herbie Teope, Sam Mellinger, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff, and we're going to talk Chiefs, and we want to talk Chiefs with you, so send us questions, comments, and we'll get going here. And Vahe Gregorian, on assignment-ish, kind of.
Is that what we're calling that?
That's right.
His second job is a DoorDash deliverer.
Vahe's working his way back from a little Christmas time off, and you will see him certainly Sunday after the game. So Herbie was working on Christmas Day. He was at the Chiefs' practice. The Chiefs practiced on Christmas Day, indoors, I noticed, which was interesting. It was a beautiful day, and they were
60 degrees.
and they were in the indoor facility. But there's also some news yesterday. Let's get to that. People probably not all caught up on the Chiefs news, but there was some news yesterday, Herbie. There was another injury.
Yeah, running back Spencer Ware was placed on injured reserve on Wednesday with a shoulder injury, and then what the Chiefs did as a corresponding move, they activated defensive tackle Xavier Williams from injured reserve to the 53-player roster. Now, obviously, with Ware now on injured reserve, the Chiefs got the most out of him. He signed just before the New England Patriots game, so they got 3 games out of him. Where he suffered the injury, I haven't looked back at the tape, but it was interesting that Andy Reid said after the game he tweaked his shoulder along with Lesean Breland, but they were able to finish the game. So putting him on injured reserve now the Chiefs go into the playoffs with 3 running backs. Damian Williams, who just returned from a rib injury, Lesean Mccoy, who was inactive against the Bears, and rookie Darwin Thompson. So that backfield right now, once again, we're back to a running back by committee, but your top 3 are now set.
Let's talk about what Ware brought to the Chiefs in just, a handful of games. In each of the games, wasn't he the leading, in terms of snaps, the leading running back?
Until this last one, Damian Williams.
That's right, yeah. But the first 2 games, he started. They signed him off the street against the week of the Patriots game. Start him. I don't know if he started, but had the most snaps of any running back. Look, we all know Spencer Ware. He played with the Chiefs for several years before this. But what a contribution he made for this team.
He brought a physical presence. What Spencer Ware brought to the Chiefs in the past 3 games was a guy who was able to run between the tackles and also the third down running back. With the ability to block and the ability to pick up blitzes was tremendous for the Chiefs.
Well, not only that, picking up blitzes, I think that may have been his greatest strength, is protecting Patrick Mahomes back there. They're going to miss that.
I don't think there's any question. That's why that week up to the Patriots game, remember they were like, we're going to take it easy, they were talking about 15 snaps or whatever. They just threw him in, and I think that's 100% of the reason. And look, if you're going to have a strength as a running back for the Chiefs, when Patrick Mahomes is playing quarterback, it better be protected.
Yeah, that'll get you on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why Darwin Thompson hasn't been playing, I'm convinced.
And, going back to that, I think one of the most underrated aspects of former Chiefs running back Jamal Charles was his blocking ability. And then, you think of Jamal Charles, you always thought of a flashy type runner. Yep. But he was an every down back because he could block.
He was tough, man.
Oh yeah, he was. So Herbie mentioned it. That leaves the Chiefs with Lesean McCoy, Damian Williams, and Darwin Thompson. That's it. That's your depth chart at running back. And are the Chiefs weakened at that position? Are they going to go into the postseason, weakened there? Because McCoy hasn't. He was inactive last week and really hasn't played a whole lot in the last few weeks.
Yeah, we like to think of this as a running back by committee, but to me, Damian Williams has to step up and be the lead guy now. And we saw last week he kind of took over that role in the second half, especially after Ware went out of the game, and he was good. I mean, he came back and played for the first time in basically 5 weeks. That was just 3 games, but they had their bye week there, first action in 5 weeks. And I encountered him in the locker room having a conversation with a teammate, and he just said, I feel fresh. And so week 17, you've got your starting running back feeling fresh because he's missed games, and we've talked about how much they've missed certain guys that have been missing for that backfield, but maybe that's a silver lining of not having everybody all season is now you've got a guy that has a little bit more left in his tank than maybe he otherwise would.
As long as he can stay healthy.
Right.
I mean, that's been an issue.
Because it is a question.
Yeah, that's been an issue.
It's not the same injury that's been keeping him out this year.
Yeah.
So
And he's got, and you wrote, I thought it was really good after the Bears game. I think of him as the guy with sort of the highest ceiling.
For sure.
In that group, and certainly the biggest like kind of home run threat. The run.
The only home run threat, really.
Yeah. I forgot which game it was now.
The Vikings game.
It was the Vikings game where he cut out. And that was mostly set up by the offensive line and the play call, but he still had to hit it.
Yeah.
And then get run down by Tyreek Hill.
He's the best running back in the screen game, isn't he?
For sure. He's the best receiver.
Which is so important for what, and we saw a touchdown reception.
He's really the only guy that we've seen them comfortable lining up 5 wide, like taking out of the backfield, motioning out to try and get a mismatch on a linebacker. I mean, he's absolutely, I think, their best weapon out of the backfield. And I think running and passing the ball, and he actually is an adequate blocker. He's not Spencer Ware's level, but he is an adequate blocker to where he can play all 3 downs. But when you miss games, are your legs healthy enough to play all 3 downs?
And let's not forget what he did in the playoffs last year. I mean, he was huge. I mean, he had the 100-yard rushing game against the Colts, and he had 3 touchdowns against the Patriots. So he was dynamite in the postseason, and the Chiefs are going to need that. What about Lesean Mccoy? How is he going to be used? And I kind of saw him as a guy that may have fallen out of favor a little bit here recently. But now he's going to, if Damian Williams is going to be the guy, then the second guy, I just can't see it being Darwin Thompson.
Yeah, see, here's the interesting thing about Lesean McCoy, because you mentioned Damian Williams' ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, but Lesean McCoy during his prime years, hands down one of the top running backs out of the backfield because the guy can catch the football. But you're right, he did fall out of favor with the fumbles. You just can't fumble in Andy Reid's offense. Now, if Williams goes down, they do have a running back on the practice squad, and Lesean McCoy, so he's a guy to also keep an eye on as the postseason progresses here. But McCoy, clear number 2 behind Damian Williams.
I'm wondering with Sunday's game, I don't think we even mentioned that. Chiefs playing the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles on Sunday at Arrowhead.
Reaching it, man.
I've got a feeling, just because of the depth situation right now, that we could see a lot of Darwin Thompson on Sunday. Why would you risk an injury or further injuring Damian Williams or Lesean McCoy? You really don't want either one of those guys banged up going into the postseason.
But the interesting thing is Andy Reid, and I know Sam McDowell here wrote about it. It's a perfect segue to his article, but Andy Reid said he is going to play the starters because the Chiefs do have a lot to play for. I'll kick it to you. Why do they have a lot to play for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they could be the number 2 seed still, but I mean, the Patriots would have to lose to the Dolphins, and I feel like I'm as down on the Patriots as of anybody, but I don't see them losing that one.
Right.
And they could drop to the 4, but the Texans don't play till later in the afternoon. But the difference between the 3 and 4 is much smaller than the difference between 2 and 3. So Blair and I had a conversation about this. We wondered that they may not be informing the players of what's going on in the New England game, but you would think as coaches it would be smart to know what's going on, because if that game gets 3 to 4 touchdown margin, maybe you are throwing some backups in there. And Darwin Thompson's a great example of a guy to throw in.
Exactly. I think if you start seeing Darwin Thompson on the field in sort of regular duty, a decision's been made.
I agree.
And is it the wise thing to do to play the starters and to go all out? And Andy Reid's done it both ways. I mean, but it's always when his playoff position has been locked in.
Yeah, and that's a no-brainer, right? Like, to sit those guys. But it's a little bit tougher situation this week, and I think I would lean what they're doing. I just look, and either decision can backfire, right? Like, imagine playing the starters and the Patriots win, like everybody expects, and then some key player goes down with injury. I mean, that could torpedo, especially if it's one of 3 or 4 key players. That could really torpedo your postseason. But I just don't know. I feel like if you sat the quarterback and the tight end and Tyree, like all these guys, and then you end up losing, which is entirely possible, and then you drop down to the 4, and now you got to play Baltimore in the second round if you win the first round game. I just don't think you want to get into that. It's football. Like, people get hurt, like you protect them when you can, but I think you got to play.
In the words of the immortal Herm Edwards, hello, you play to win the game. And play your starters.
It is a little bit of unfair, maybe, situation that the Chiefs are at a slight disadvantage here that they play at noon and Houston plays later. And I understand why the NFL did that, because the Houston, their game has more implications, But it's a little bit of a, I don't know if it's unfair. It's unfortunate for the Chiefs that they're in that situation.
Yeah, I actually don't understand why the NFL did that, because to me the Texans could see the Chiefs win and then rest their starters.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
in which case that game all of a sudden loses a lot of the pizzazz it would have if it was playing at the same time. And the really strange thing about that is, to me, if you're the Chiefs, you want to play Pittsburgh in the first round over Tennessee. I think we all think Tennessee is the matchup that could get them, in which case they need Tennessee to lose. But if the Chiefs win, then Tennessee's got a better chance of winning because Houston's resting their starters later in the day.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a weird one.
That's a good point.
Brian Johnson reminds us that the sausage is available as a running back too, but different.
He's a fullback.
He is a fullback. Yeah. He is.
I'm glad he said, well, I'm sorry, I'm looking over your shoulder here, but sausage is not an effective runner.
Wishful thinking.
I got you, Brian.
Major League Baseball, I believe, on the final day on game 162 starts every game at the same time. Yep. No matter where in the country it's being played, every game starts at the same time. And I'm just thinking the NFL should think about doing that. I know there are windows, a lot of TV money, a lot of money is plunged into, X number of games starting at Central Time noon, and number of games starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But for fairness and for what we're talking about, shouldn't every game start at 3 o'clock Central Time, except for the one they hold out for the night, for the evening game? Wouldn't that be the more fair situation?
I think every game should start at noon.
That's right, even on the West Coast.
Start at 10 a.m. All games start at noon, and then you know what? The world will be perfect.
All right, so
I think that would be a great idea, though.
Soccer does it too.
Yeah, MLS does that on decision day. But yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
Turn it into some sort of, started, the earliest game on the West Coast could be noon. It would start at, 3 o'clock on the East. Just make it some sort of, market it, right? Just decision day. Because there are, every year in the NFL, there's, in the NFL promotes this, X number of teams are involved in the playoff chase. And in the AFC, right? We don't know the let's just say the Chiefs finish third. Their first round opponent could be one of 3 teams right now, right? Titans, Steelers, and the Oakland Raiders of all teams. So let's talk about that. What has to happen for each of those possible opponents to play the Chiefs?
The Raiders need like 5 things.
Yeah, right, let's start at the top. The easiest one is if the Titans win, that's the Chiefs' opponent.
Yeah, Titans win, they're in.
Right, and the Titans play the Texans.
Correct.
And J.J. Watt's coming back, playing this week. How about the Steelers? What has to happen for the Chiefs to play the Steelers?
You would put me on the spot here.
Well, the Steelers need a Titans loss, and they got to beat Baltimore.
Right. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah, Baltimore's going to be resting their guys.
That's right. Lamar Jackson's not starting this week.
I saw they still opened as a 2.5-point favorite. I don't know what it is.
And we do know the Steelers. The Raiders need the Steelers and the Texans to lose.
What's that?
The Raiders need the Steelers and the Texans.
I think they strangely need the Colts to
win. And they need the Colts to beat the Jaguars. And even then, there's some formula involved.
For strength of schedule.
Yeah, strength of schedule involved. So, but it's kind of a higher percentage chance than you would think. I think the Titans and the Steelers are both underdogs. I don't know who the Colts I don't know where that game is being played, or
I think it's in Jacksonville, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's in
so maybe it's not as far-fetched as we think it might be, but. And that would be crazy for if Oakland and the Chiefs matched up for a third time this year.
I think the Chiefs would take it.
I think they would too. So let's talk. What's the most favorable first round matchup, assuming the Chiefs are a 3 seed?
I mean, I hate to. Maybe this is oversimplifying, but anybody but Tennessee, basically. I mean, I think the Chiefs would feel good against Duck Hodges.
He's on injured reserve now.
No, that's Mason Rudolph.
Oh, that's Mason Rudolph. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that.
And
Duck is the guy.
So Buffalo is a possibility, right? If the Chiefs drop
to the 4, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you'd rather play Duck Hodges than Buffalo. But there's something about Buffalo that just doesn't, if I'm the Chiefs, doesn't scare me. I don't think that offense can score enough to offset what the Chiefs defense can. You know what I mean? Like I think that would be a good matchup for them. I just think Tennessee is a nightmare. Derrick Henry, we've seen it too many times, and there's no look. Like I think that like Mike Purnell, he didn't play that game, oddly, right? And he does make a difference in the middle there, but not that much of a difference. Not enough of a difference to drop Derrick Henry from Gale Sayers down to an average running back.
And Xavier Williams would be possibly on the field against in a playoff game. What do you guys think?
I think Tennessee's their second worst matchup in the entire AFC.
After Baltimore?
I think Baltimore is playing better than anybody. I think that's probably pretty obvious. But as far as the teams they don't want to play, I'd rank Tennessee second on that list. I think they match up better with New England and Houston even than they do with Tennessee. We've seen a lot of teams for some reason abandon the run against the Chiefs, and Tennessee is not going to abandon the run.
Right. You agree? Is it Tennessee then?
Yeah, Tennessee, stay away from Tennessee. Derrick Henry, everyone here just mentioned his history against the Chiefs, and I think that if it somehow happens, the stars aligned, you want the Oakland Raiders. Andy Reid's record against the AFC West, we already know it, 26-3 since 2015. You want the Raiders in the first round, and then go ahead and advance to the second round. Steelers aren't a bad option either. They're down in the third quarterback. Why not? But you don't want the Titans.
Isn't there some kind of law of averages though with the Titans? I mean, it's the Andy Reid.
I think we're going to find out. That's the
not
matchup
so far.
I think is going to happen.
I mean, it's really unbelievable. Andy Reid, both as the Eagles and Chiefs coach, cannot beat the Tennessee Titans. He's 1-8.
I don't know what Tennessee looked like when he was with the Eagles, but the way that this team is built, just offensively with that running back, it
and
just
what
makes
Tannehill's
a
brought him.
Yeah,
and what Ryan Tannehill
they've been a
brought
different
that
team since Tannehill, and I think defensively they're not great, but they're physical. They can do some things. It makes logical sense why this specific Titans team, gives them problems, and then God help him if there's another touchdown pass to himself. But I guess that quarterback's on the bench now, at least.
So no confidence in the Chiefs here against the Titans. We'll all pick the Titans if it comes to
I'd
that.
still pick the Chiefs.
I would too.
I just think it's the
I wouldn't feel
matchup
good about it.
it's the matchup that probably should scare you.
Yeah, I would think so. I just think all those other teams, especially the Raiders, I think you just have to worry about, overconfidence and, overlooking a playoff opponent, which is kind of weird.
Yes,
but I think Buffalo might have a chance. Josh Allen is dangerous, but I think the Chiefs would be a legitimate, deserved, somewhat heavy favorite in that game.
John Gordon puts it well. If you can't beat Tennessee, then you don't deserve to go any further.
Sure.
I agree. That's exactly right,
Yep.
John. If they can't beat Tennessee, especially at Arrowhead, this was not a Super Bowl team.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that one bit.
Right. So, okay. Again, they're playing the Chargers on Sunday. Is this? I don't know. For some reason, Phillip Rivers is one of my favorite topics. I'm kind of fascinated by his career, and he is. I think this is right. He's going to play his 29th game against the Chiefs. Start his 29th game against the Chiefs.
God, that's a lot.
It is. It's the most of any quarterback. He'll match John Elway for the most of any opponent in Chiefs history. Rivers is 14-14 against the Chiefs as a starter. Think about this. The Chiefs have won 10 of the last 11 meetings against the Chargers. So the first part of Rivers' career, he owned the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then Andy Reid gets to, it wasn't Mahomes, it was Andy Reid getting to Kansas City, and that changed the nature of the rivalry. So do we think this is it for Phillip Rivers?
I think what's interesting with Phillip Rivers, normally when you ask him about his contract situation over the past few years, he's never come out and said uncertainty. And just 2 weeks ago when he was asked about it, he said he understands he's going into this offseason with the, quote, uncertainty, end quote, of where he's going to be in 2020. And that's fascinating to me because when you think of the Chargers, you think of Phillip Rivers. And Andy Reid, I asked him about what if this is Rivers' last swan song with the Chargers. And, basically, Reid said on Monday he raved about his qualities as a player, called him passionate. And then he said, when you think of the Chargers, whether it's San Diego or Los Angeles, it is Phillip Rivers. We had Coach Anthony Lynn on the conference call. I asked him about it, and of course, Anthony Lynn kind of punted on it. It's like, well, I'm not worried about the offseason. I still have a game to prepare for. But is Anthony Lynn still going to be there next year? So there's a lot of dynamics in play here in Los Angeles.
Yep. I don't know. Is he a Hall of Famer?
People say he's a slam dunk.
He's
I
definitely
disagree.
he's not a slam dunk.
Yeah, if you just look where he is on like career passing numbers, you would think like that guy should go in. But there's never been a time, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's never been a time you'd say he was the best quarterback in the league.
No.
I don't know that there's been a time you'd say he's one of the 3 best. He's always been pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's a case for longevity. I'm not disrespecting longevity, but he doesn't do it for me.
He's never made a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No, I think one AFC championship.
One AFC championship that game.
But he played on a
Colts, right?
ACL.
We played with the torn ACL.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty badass. Like
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But I don't know, Hall of Fame quarterback. Like I can overlook like team success for a linebacker, like
Yeah, but
other things.
quarterback,
I
I
just
agree.
think a quarterback at some point you need to have broken through, and at some point, even if it's just for a year or two, you need to be the best quarterback in the league, or at least like in that conversation. I don't think he ever has.
The problem is, though, he's been in an era of quarterbacks where, of course, he's going to be overshadowed by the likes of Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
Peyton Manning in his prime, Tom Brady in his prime, even Eli Manning.
Drew Brees.
Yeah, Drew Brees, the guy that Phillip Rivers replaced. So it was always difficult to place him in that conversation when all those other quarterbacks are having MVP-type seasons. Yeah. Even Brett Favre in the 2000s. So.
But that's a standard, right? That's a standard at his position, and he played at a time that has been, it's not easiest, but this is the time in the NFL where it's been most tilted toward offense and toward quarterbacks. And so that has to be taken into account as well. Other players took better advantage of it. I don't want to be like dumping on him. He's been a really good player for a long time, but Hall of Fame needs to be sort of the best of the best. I don't think he cuts it there.
He was the best in the division before Peyton Manning got to Denver.
Yeah.
And because they won 4 straight divisions with him as the quarterback. And I just remember thinking at the time, it's just a matter of time before the Chargers break through and get to a Super Bowl.
Sure, yeah.
And then they never did. In fact, after those 4 division titles, they haven't won one since, and they've been mostly mediocre. They were a playoff team last year, and we thought that was, maybe he'll go out on a high note, but this has been such a disappointing season for the Chargers.
That game in Mexico City reminded me of when the Chiefs played Peyton Manning in Denver when he threw 4 picks and got yanked. And I just thought when we were watching Phillip Rivers in Mexico City, you kind of thought this is the end for him.
He looked cooked.
And yet he was a final interception away from tying that game, sending it to overtime.
That's a really Chargers game, by the way. We look at all this stuff from the Chiefs' perspective, but that guy throwing 4 interceptions and still having a chance at the end, but throwing the 4th interception to lose the game. And that's a very there's a lot of people that would encapsulate Phillip Rivers' career in that way.
I agree. He doesn't. The Chargers have a weird way of losing a lot of close games, and I don't know how much of the blame you can put on the quarterback, but I think at least some.
How about this stat? If the Chiefs win Sunday, they'll be 27, as Herbie mentioned, 27-3 against the division over the last 5 years. That'll be the best 5-year record for a team in a division since the AFL-NFL merger in
Where do you
1970.
find this?
This was actually in the Chiefs' notes of all places.
Okay.
What to look for.
Right.
There was a stat
Page
the other
3.
day. The AFC South has beaten the Chiefs more over the last 2 seasons or whatever than the AFC West. I really like that stat.
They lost 3 times this year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is amazing. The Chiefs have already clinched a better road record than home record this year. Should that be kind of a consideration as you think about this team in the playoffs?
Oh, absolutely.
That this team can go on the road and do what it did at New England, for instance.
Well, think about this. Last year, the 2 Super Bowl teams went to the road. So the Patriots beat the Chiefs here at Arrowhead, and the Rams beat the Saints in New Orleans. So your ability to win on the road, it gives you confidence, it motivates you, and it gives you a sense of arrogance that we can win anywhere. So going 7-1, and this is the first time since 1966 that the Chiefs have won 7 road games, and that's pretty fascinating to me.
They were a field goal away from being 8-0. I mean, if they convert either of those field goals in Tennessee, they probably go 8-0.
That's right. Kind of a fluky loss to not be undefeated.
Weird game, man.
Yep. And keep in mind that road record does include Mexico City as well. But the Chargers were the home team there. So there was something else. I don't think we've written this or said anything about it, but the Chiefs' schedule for next year has been set.
Opponents.
The opponents for next year, right. So we know that they're going to play at the Saints, at the Bucks, at the Bills, Dolphins, and Ravens. Those are the road games. In addition to in addition to Las Vegas in the AFC West, at home next year.
You buried the lead. Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
I know there's some other cities out there that are some of your favorites.
We'll be doing Facebook Live from the Bellagio.
We're just going to cover all 8 Raiders home games next year.
Home next year, Falcons, Panthers, Patriots. Patriots finally coming in regular season game, right? Jets and the Houston Texans come to.
It's a tough schedule.
It is a tough schedule. It's a first place schedule, and because the Ravens and the Texans are locked into first place, that's why we know the Chiefs' schedule or the Chiefs' opponents for next year. All right, so we have come to the juncture of our favorite segment here. It's called Where the Rubber Meets the Road. Hey, it's where we identify a player that we think will come up big or needs to come up big for the Chiefs to succeed on Sunday. And our little bonus question this time, I don't think
we never discussed the bonus question ahead of time.
Well, for those of us that were here by 9:30,
That's
they
fair.
know.
That's fair.
They know.
That's fair. I'll take that.
We'll come to you last on that. It's an easy one. Chiefs MVP. They played 15 games. There is a Derek Thomas Award for the Chiefs MVP, and last year Patrick Mahomes was sort of an easy winner. Before that, I believe it was Alex Smith was the team MVP. Eric Berry, Justin Houston in the years before that. So it doesn't always have to be the quarterback. Like I said, it was pretty obvious last year. So who is Herbie, we'll start with you. Who is your rubber meets the road Chief, and who was the Chiefs MVP this
I'm
season?
going to dip back into the well here. I said Suggs last week, and he actually played pretty well.
Yeah,
but
we haven't talked. We should have brought him up. It's a good time to talk about Terrell Suggs a little bit.
Yeah, Suggs to me was fascinating against the Bears. If you remember that rush he had off of the edge.
Oh my God!
Really early in the game, flushed Mitchell Trubisky out of the pocket. Should have sacked him, but he held him enough in bounds where Frank Clark was able to
Pushed
go in
him
there
out of
and clean it
bounds
up.
for the sack.
Yeah, but that should have been Suggs, and I think Suggs, as he gets more comfortable, and Rivers is your classic pocket-type passer, this bodes very well for Suggs, and I think he's my rubber meets the road. As far as MVP, I'm going to defense. Where is this defense without the Honey Badger? Matthew has just been phenomenal for this. He should have been in the Pro Bowl, but I think the Associated Press will take care of him by naming him an All-Pro. He is the MVP for the Chiefs, for me at least.
Okay. Sam McDowell?
This week, both of these, I'm on the same wavelength as Herbie. The reason I think the Chargers struggle against the Chiefs is the Chiefs' defensive line just tears them up. So I think Chris Jones has a big day. Team MVP, I think we probably all think the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, is the team MVP. So just to say something different, but sort of similar, the Charvarius Ward, I think actually getting a number one cornerback this year has done wonders.
It's to really change the defense and the secondary. Okay. Sam Mellinger?
Oh, Matthew was my first choice. Charvarius Ward was my second.
Sure it was. Sure, yeah. Let's humor him.
Anyway, I'll come back to that. In the spirit of, I never really answered this.
No, you don't. You don't.
Just make up my
That's
own
right.
stuff.
Is it going to be Arrowhead?
Nope,
I mean,
it's going to be Rick Burkholder. Because they need to come out of this game healthy going into the playoffs. I think health has been, we can point to a lot of things, but to me health has been the biggest difference between this team being where they are and having the two locked in already. They just had that stretch where they were missing like 7-8 starters, some games. So I think think about the difference, whether they win or lose on Sunday. Think about the difference of how this show will go after that game, if they're as healthy as they are right now, or if somebody really important gets hurt. So I think that's the most important thing. Shoot, I can't take Matthew or Charvarius Ward.
You absolutely can.
All right, well, how about this? No, this has never been said in the history of this show. Just to be different, I'll take Patrick Mahomes since everybody's overlooking him. For obvious reasons.
The most overlooked of the Chiefs.
Exactly.
Patrick
It's time that he gets some respect.
Hey, what do you guys think? Tell us who you think. And Brian LaBerge has weighed in with Steve Spagnuolo should be the MVP.
That's a good one.
It is.
Also, Mitch Schwartz could be in that conversation. Mm-hmm. Offensive lineman, it's tough, but he's been missed a snap or two or whatever it was in Tennessee. But he's for all the turnover at that position group, he's been steady and just as good as always.
I'll say for rubber meets the road, Travis Kelce, just because He's 6 receptions away from 100, becoming the first tight end in NFL history to have consecutive 100 reception seasons. You better believe the Chiefs are aware of that, and I think they'll feed him the ball early. Yeah. So I think he'll rack up some numbers on Sunday. Of course, he had the big touchdown reception against the Chargers in Mexico City. So I think he operates well against the Chargers. I just look for him to come up with some big numbers. But for team MVP, before you arrived, Sam, we did talk about this, and I'm
okay.
Had to kill some time.
Right. And I'm not going to be different. I'm going to blend in with Herbie here. I just think Tyrann Mathieu, especially as the season has unfolded, it wasn't like he got off to a great start or this defense got off to a great start, but I just measure the defensive improvement in his ability to just cover the entire field. He's amazing.
To play anywhere.
And they let him play everywhere, right? It's almost like they use him the way some teams use that jack linebacker. You just line up anywhere you want, wherever you think you can get an advantage. That's what they do with him, and it has worked wonderfully.
It's worth noting, too, that he's got a little bit of, like, player coach in him a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the way that Charvarius Ward talks about Tyrann Mathieu, it's similar, like, different positions, whatever, but it's similar to the way that Patrick Mahomes and others have talked about him learning from Alex Smith. Like, as far as, like, how to be a pro, how to prepare, how to take care of your mind and your body, all that stuff. Like, so I think, look, Charvarius is the one doing it. He's the one turning his head, knocking the ball down on that end zone pass to Allen Robinson. But he would give a lot of the credit to Tyrann Mathieu as well.
I think you're right. Jermaine Grigsby has Kelce as the rubber meets the road, and Chris Jones as the MVP. Chris Jones has quietly had a terrific season.
His injury probably takes him a little bit out of that conversation for me, but I mean, he is their most talented guy on the defensive line. That includes Frank Clark.
Yeah.
What happens to Chris Jones after the season?
It's a good question.
Still
They've got the franchise tag.
That's what I'm thinking too.
They've got the franchise tag available.
Tag and holdouts.
Yep.
That's what we're saying, I think.
Stephen Fisher says happy with Jones or the Honey Badger as a team MVP. Look, there are a lot of ways to go on this. But the fact that we're talking about the Honey Badger, Chris Jones, Charvarius Ward, you could probably throw Juan Thornhill in. He was, for us, when we did a midseason MVP, he was a couple of ours. Yeah. The fact that we're talking about the defense this way, that's right. Who'd have thought? Who in the world would have thought that going into the season? 9.6 points per game Chiefs have allowed in the last, is it 4 games or 5?
Five games. 5 games.
It's the NFL.
Right, and only one real touchdown drive of any substance, the opening drive against the Patriots. Yep. The other 2 touchdowns the Patriots had that day, or the other touchdown was a short field after the block punt, and this Chiefs defense is it's been remarkable. And which is why I don't know about you, I'd like to hear about this from you guys. I feel a little differently about the Chiefs going into the postseason this year than I do in previous years, just because this is a more balanced team.
There's no question. I thought they had, I mean, this sounds dumb because of course they did, but like a really, really good chance at the Super Bowl last year. They had the 1 seed, they had that game at home, and they really
were there.
They were coin flip.
Right.
But I do think that they can beat you in different ways now. And one little very subtle part, seeing Terrell Suggs like in action, one thing that they were missing on that defense, and they still are susceptible to the run, but he's not quite at Frank Clark's level, obviously, but as far as like an edge setter and, kind of containing some runs, and they're going to need that if and when they get to Baltimore, Lamar Jackson getting out, force it, Mark Ingram up the middle and stop on the edges. And Frank Clark is great at that. And they just didn't have anybody that was doing it on the other side. And I think Terrell Suggs is that guy.
Kathy Christensen, thanks, Kathy, says the Honey Badger and John Gordon. Brett Veach had a great offseason. Yes?
Yeah,
did.
Absolutely.
Yes, he did.
Yep. Defensive line, and especially the safety. I mean, I've talked about the safeties too much, but just turned it from the worst to a legitimate major strength.
And again, I just think the entire secondary. I mean, it's just been that's the difference, right?
Yeah, Bashaud Breeland's been pretty good.
Yep.
So
So
he's been, but his up has been worth it.
Let's leave with a quick injury update, though. We know about Spencer Ware, Herbie. I saw that limited practice yesterday was Morris Claiborne
And Wiley.
and Andrew Wiley. What are the prospects of those guys?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what they do. I dropped in the Andy Reid line. We'll see. We'll get that to you. But, Thursday and Friday will be the key thing. Friday especially will be the key practice on whether they'll play. But we'll see.
And they had Rashad Fenton back last week, right? Fenton had been out.
Fenton was inactive,
He was
though.
inactive, but he was available, though.
He was available.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. Herbie does this great press box trick on game days. The inactives are released 90 minutes before kickoff, and Herbie tries to guess who the Chiefs will list as inactive. And I bet you're batting about 95% this year.
The Nostradamus of the Chiefs inactive list. That's right.
It's a thing of beauty. It really is. All right. Hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in this day after Christmas. The next time we'll talk to you is Sunday, late afternoon from the Arrowhead Stadium press box, where the Chiefs play the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles on noon kickoff. Wanted to thank Beth for spinning the dials as she does every week. And Sarah and Mike are here as well. Great to have you guys here. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you again on Sunday.